Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Georgia State University. I'm Tim Rennick, Vice Provost and Chief Enrollment Officer at Georgia State, and we're very happy to have you here today. I know it's not always easy, kind of suspending your work lives for a day to come to an event like this. We appreciate your commitment of time. I certainly know it's not easy finding W-Lot with streetcar construction, with one-way streets and all the other things that Atlanta brings you. But I'm happy to announce that if you found your way to this meeting today, you've passed the first test on the road to productive use of predictive analytics. You have the mental capability to succeed and put some of these policies into effect. Hopefully, you'll have a good, productive day. We've got an interesting schedule planned for you. You'll be moving around quite a bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about logistics before we break from this room this morning. But I want to start this presentation in this workshop off by introducing an important guest. We're very honored this morning to have Chancellor Hank Huckabee here with us. As you know, the Chancellor leads one of the largest state systems in the country, 31 schools and about 310,000 students. He's had a distinguished career of public service, which includes serving in the House of Representatives, serving as the director of the governor's budget office for planning and budget. But probably his most distinguished professional achievement is the fact that he holds not one but two degrees from Georgia State University, both the bachelor's and the master's degree. I know it's always disappointing when you peak so early, but it's great to know that you did so at a first-rate institution. So we're very honored to have Chancellor Huckabee here, but we're also very honored to count him among the alums of Georgia State University. He's been a great supporter of students in his years as chancellor, and his heart is in and his policy decisions both back up the spirit of Complete College Georgia. So let me introduce Chancellor Huckabee.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning. I want to first say thank you for being here, because I take this as evidence that you're genuinely interested in the program today, but more importantly, you're genuinely interested and committed to the program that we're trying to follow in general throughout the whole university system of Georgia. So thanks for your presence. Thanks to Georgia State, my alma mater, for hosting this event. Tim Rennick, you'll be hearing him a lot, I'm sure, during the day, but he's an outstanding resource. Tom Sugar, our good friend from Complete College America, we appreciate him being willing to leave the cold weather in Indiana and come down to the not so warm weather in Atlanta. I also want to take just a second to thank Lynn Weisenbach. Lynn, stand up. I don't know how many of you have had the privilege of working with Lynn over the last 7 or 8 years. She came to the university system in 2008, and she's been an integral part of what we have done, and particularly what we're doing now. She's one of those people who has great vision and great commitment to making higher education more effective and relevant. She is retiring at the end of March, end of next month, which starts tomorrow, and returning to Indiana with her husband, and for good reasons, to return to be with family in that great state. So we thank Lynn for all that she has done. I realized very quickly when I became chancellor, when I first met Lynn, and she told me all that she was about, I quickly learned that she was a tremendous asset to the system, and particularly to me in my role as chancellor. In 2010, I made a run for the state legislature and won in my district. And one of my concerns that I stated throughout that campaign was, as the recession wound down, that we would go back to spending the increase in resources the same old way. And I feared that because in my 40-plus years of service in state government, I had experienced a number of recessions, budget cutting, program elimination, only to watch most of those things come back once the revenues began to increase again. And so many times, those not only came back, but they brought new programs with them. But I sensed, as we experienced the last session beginning in 2007, 2008, that this was different, and indeed it was different. It was going to be a slow comeback. And that crisis, quite frankly, I saw as providing us a great opportunity. You know, sometimes in crisis, you have an opportunity to do things you otherwise would not have done or probably would not have had the political ability to do. So I felt coming into the legislature that we had to do things differently. I spent 4 months in the legislature. It was an interesting 4 months. But the governor approached me about considering this position. And it took a while. At first, a couple of times I said no. But ultimately, Amy and I said, okay, we'll give it a shot. I asked him, the final question I asked him was, Governor, are you willing to make major changes? Because quite frankly, if he had answered that the wrong way, I wasn't interested in being a caretaker or maintaining what we'd always done. And he said, absolutely. He said, if we don't make changes, we're going to get some changes by the legislature we don't want, and it would not be good for the state of Georgia. So with that in mind, I agreed to become chancellor, and we began that process on July 1, 2011. Shortly after I became chancellor, I was approached about the whole prospect of considering being a part of the alliance, the Complete College America Alliance. Quite frankly, up until that time, there had been resistance to this at the policy level in the university system. But it seemed to me that it made eminent good sense that we ought to be a part of that, because it could provide a mechanism to not only be appropriately responsive to the growing needs of the economy of Georgia, but also provide a mechanism where we could begin to infuse some real change in public higher education in this state. As you know, public higher education, or higher education in general, is not an institution that historically has embraced change very readily. So I knew it was going to be an uphill battle. Excuse me. But we agreed to become a part of that. We began to work very hard at our office level, presented our state plan to Complete College America. They adopted it in record time. We developed it in record time. But to your credit, at the institutional level, you also in turn prepared your own version of that plan within the context of the state plan. So we're off and running. We've done a lot of the preliminary things very, very well, and we have a good reputation for that. But the proof is in the pudding now going forward. We've got to produce. And this workshop today is an integral part of our overall strategy in making Complete College Georgia really work for us. Over the last 2 or 3 months, seems like longer than that, we've been holding our institutional budget hearings internally within our office. I think we've got 2 more to go. An important piece of that discussion is around what we call enrollment management. If you don't have a solid, comprehensive, integrated enrollment management plan, then you're not going to be successful. You're not going to attract the students, recruit the students you need. You're not going to retain them. They're not going to progress through your institutions and, ultimately graduate. And quite candidly, it's an umbrella term that includes everything from the recruiting process to registration, orientation, financial aid, advisement, etc. And it really doesn't stop there. In other words, we have to change our whole mindset as we reach out to Georgians, both traditional students coming out of high school and those non-traditional students, which we're really going to be focusing on over the next two or 3 years. And it requires, to be successful, it requires the buy-in and participation of the entire college or university. And I often say that we in public higher education have a lot to learn from our colleagues and partners in independent colleges. I serve on the board of trustees of Young Harris College, and I can tell you every potential student, every applicant, every student involved is a precious commodity because they have to work so hard to get them. So we have a lot to learn from them. We don't have to start from scratch. They understand how important it is. Now, what you're going to hear today is an incredibly important element, what I hope you will be doing back at your institutions. It's not just about technology. The technology is critical to us, but the technology will have no effect if we don't, in turn, and prior to implementing the technology, embrace the overall concept of what we're about, which means we need to change our thinking, we need to change our structures in so many ways. We can't continue to carry out those specific activities that come under this overarching rubric of enrollment management, cannot continue to implement those in silos. And that's what we've done in the past. I know some schools are already making great strides in changing that mindset, and you're going to hear about one of them today when you talk to the folks at Georgia State University. In fact, this element of our budget hearings is so important that on more than one occasion, we have asked that institutional leadership to come back and let's do a do-over when it comes to their enrollment management strategy, their plan. Because we're absolutely convinced that at the institutional level, you cannot be successful without a dynamic, comprehensive enrollment management plan. And we certainly know that given the change in the way our funding is going to be allocated in the university system starting in FY16, going from an enrollment-based allocation formula or funding formula to an accountability and outcomes-based formula, the world will change right in front of you. And if we're not start preparing now, some institutions, quite frankly, are going to be really hurt financially because we're not going to bail you out at the system level. So this is serious business. We want everybody to be successful, and we're confident on the discussions we've had thus far that all of you are capable of doing that. So I don't leave you with a downer attitude. We are genuinely enthusiastic about where we are, about where you are, because I often say to legislators and to our colleagues, my staff in the university system office, we don't recruit a student, we don't teach a course, we don't offer any degrees. Everything we do is at the institutional level. And the bottom line is, I guess, if we have a mantra of at least my administration as chancellor, it is that the focus is on students. It's not on institutions, it's not on structures, it's on students. And that everything we do, to the best of our ability, has to inure to the benefit of our students. To that end, I'm so pleased to see some of the top leadership of the technical college system of Georgia here. We are partners. We're not competitors. We're not adversaries. We are partners because both of us together are charged under the Complete College Georgia Plan over the next 10 to 12 years to produce 250,000 more certificated, degreed students, whether it be traditional students or non-traditional students. Neither of us can do that alone. And neither of us independently can provide the educated, trained workforce that Georgia's going to need in the next 10 to 15 years to be economically viable and competitive. So thank you for being here. You're about important work. You're about work that we look to you to be successful. If you're successful, then the university system of Georgia will be successful. You're in a good place this morning to learn about what can be done, ways to be successful in implementing important pieces of your complete College Georgia plan. I'm very proud that Georgia State University is looked upon as a national leader, in my opinion, the national leader in terms of using technology, in terms of involving all the right people at a university to do what's best for the students to help them achieve, not only achieve, but complete their degrees. It's an intriguing process. Our board has been briefed on it. They're excited. We're excited about what's going on here. And everyone, not just here in Georgia, but around the country can learn a lot. As I just told earlier that there's 7 or 8, 9 states coming in soon to hear this story and what you're hearing today. So thank you again for being here. I know you have a great opportunity. I know you will work hard with the staff here and learn as much as possible. And I assure you, if you carry these lessons back to your institutions, it will inure to the benefit, not only the institution, but more importantly, to the students under your responsibility at your respective schools. Have a great day. I wish I could stay with you. I've got to go back, and the Georgia legislature is still around, and so there are always things I can deal with there. Again, thank you for being here. Godspeed.
Thank you, Chancellor Huckabee. Appreciate you taking the time to say a few words. I'm Houston Davis, Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer of the university system. It is wonderful to see all of you here, and I'll echo Tim's remark earlier that we know that the work didn't stop in your offices and in your departments and on your campuses just because you chose to be here. We appreciate you giving of your time and your talents. One of the things that I think that you are going to pick up on today are there are some really exciting and innovative things being done. Not only here at Georgia State, but you're going to pick up that there are pockets of really exciting things happening on many of our campuses. I'm very, satisfied that what we're talking about here today is not just a tool or a set of tools, but the utilization of those tools. One of the things that throughout the day you're going to see is it's how do you get in and get your hands dirty working with those tools, benefiting the students, being able to provide pathways for the faculty and the staff that are engaged with those students to be able to leverage those tools. It does us no good to just set up systems if they do not indeed come to a utilization stage. I wanted to take a couple of minutes before I turn it back over to Tim to talk a little bit about logistics to recognize, and the Chancellor mentioned a couple of these folks, but I wanted to have them stand if they will. First of all, I want to start with Tom Sugar. Tom, if you can stand. Tom is with Complete College America and has been our point person for the state of Georgia and our Complete College Georgia initiative, and has been a great supporter of the work that we've done, has been a great matchmaker, if you will, in connecting us up with opportunities with other states, other systems, other sister universities and colleges around the country. Related to that, where is Rob Johnstone? Please stand up in the back. Rob is here today. He's shadowing. He's a part of and is going to be our CCA consultant on a future project that is our Guided Pathways project. It's going to involve a Lumina-funded project that will involve the system in Georgia as well as the systems in Indiana and Tennessee. More to come later in terms of public announcements on that, but we are appreciative of Rob taking of his time to be able to be with us. Kim Hunter-Reed, do you mind standing? Kim is with us as well. She's with HCM Strategist and is a part of the leadership of something that's called the Strategy Labs Network. Georgia was selected a couple years ago. How many states are now in the Strategy Labs? 26, one of 26 states now that have been identified as really being leaders in terms of thinking about innovations, in terms of content, in terms of supports, in terms of business models, in terms of accountability, innovation, infrastructure demands that come to higher education as we look to the future and what will be. Very appreciative of the Strategy Labs Network as well. And then I also, Josephine, would you mind standing? Josephine Reed-Taylor. I just messed her up. She's going to have to pick up everything. I forget we're in a classroom. We got the old fold-over table. Josephine Reed-Taylor is my counterpart in the technical college system. She and a number of her colleagues from their central office are here with us today. As the chancellor said, critical partners with us as we move forward and we start identifying what are those seamless opportunities that Georgians need as we look to the future. And then last, I'd like to thank, I'm going to do a little echo here. This next month is going to be a rolling appreciation of Lynn Weisenbach. But for today, I'll thank Lynn, but her team as well. Her entire OEAS staff has put in countless hours in preparation for this event. Again, us thinking about how we don't just have complete College Georgia summits, but we find ways to bring as many of our counterparts and colleagues from the campuses together around focal topics, such as this sort of deep dive into the use of analytic tools. Really appreciate Lynn and your entire team, all that you've done to make today possible. And we'll try and tie that on at the end of the day to thank them a little bit more, but appreciate your leadership as well.